It's official. The View just went broke as hell.
Saying, Rowan, no, I couldn't do that at 27. No nonsense, straight to the point, courage.
After months of courtroom bombshells, leaked strategy memos, and a scandal that rocked daytime television to its core, Karoline Leavitt won, and she didn't just walk away with a victory. She walked away with $800 million and the shattered remains of one of TV's most iconic shows at her feet. Whoopi Goldberg wrecked. Joy Behar AWOL. Sunny Hostin allegedly drowning in legal bills. This wasn't just a lawsuit, it was a legal massacre. A total cultural annihilation. The View is done. And insiders say ABC is now circling the financial drain, bleeding money, panicking in meetings, and facing what one executive described as a historic implosion. Karoline Leavitt didn't just call them out, she exposed them. Line by line, email by email. And when the dust settled, the courtroom didn't just deliver a verdict, it delivered Judgment Day. So buckle in, because we're taking you deep inside the downfall. The secret footage, the leaked scripts, the boardroom freakouts, and the exact moment Whoopi realized she'd gone too far. But first, smash that like button if you're done with smug media elites. Hit subscribe so you never miss another twist in this meltdown. Did you just subscribe? Good. Let's break down how The View went from daytime royalty to bankrupt infamy.
There is so much good news, so much winning out of the Trump White House right now that the mainstream legacy media can't keep up with it.
The moment the gavel dropped and the $800 million judgment became reality, it wasn't just The View that felt the tremor, it was ABC's entire financial ecosystem. Within minutes, the shockwaves hit Wall Street like a sledgehammer. ABC's parent company, a media titan once seen as too big to fail, saw its stock price nosedive. We're talking millions in market value wiped clean before lunch. Traders were spooked, analysts were baffled, financial news outlets switched gears mid-broadcast to cover the unfolding collapse. CNBC cut from its tech segment to report, unprecedented judgment devastates ABC's market stability. That sound? It wasn't ratings, it was alarm bells. By the time Karoline Leavitt's legal team had their celebratory coffee, the fallout had already begun. Inside the skyscrapers of Manhattan, advertising executives were pulling plug after plug. 4 major sponsors, names you'd recognize from every commercial break on daytime TV, cut ties. Not tomorrow, not next week, immediately. One network insider described the panic like this. It was like watching a dam burst. Every second, someone else was pulling funding. The phones wouldn't stop. It was a bloodbath. Ad buyers went silent. Scheduled campaigns vanished. Planned product placements gone. The entire revenue ecosystem that fueled The View's multi-million-dollar production was suddenly evaporating. It wasn't just a hiccup, it was a hemorrhage. But it gets worse. See, most networks have crisis insurance, an umbrella to catch legal fallout, especially from talent meltdowns or unscripted chaos. But here's the thing, the policy excluded intentional defamation. And Karoline's win was built on exactly that, intentional, premeditated, and orchestrated character assassination. Translation, no safety net, no corporate buffer. This wasn't an oops, our lawyers will fix it situation. This was the Titanic hitting the iceberg, and the ship wasn't insured. ABC's finance department melted. Emergency meetings were called. Legal teams were brought into boardrooms like first responders at a 10-alarm fire. Executives scrambled through balance sheets, asking the same question over and over. Can we survive this? And that's when the most feared word in corporate America started to circulate. First in whispers, then in panicked phone calls, then in leaked emails. Bankruptcy. Yes, that word. A junior staffer from HR texted her friend in graphics. They're whispering Chapter 11. This isn't a drill. And they weren't wrong. Behind the scenes, HR quietly froze all new hires. Department budgets were slashed overnight. Scheduled travel for panelists and producers canceled. Security around the studio cut in half. Even catering saw a downgrade, from gourmet lunches to boxed sandwiches and black coffee. And still, Karoline Leavitt said nothing. No press conference, no celebratory post, no cryptic subtweet. Because she didn't have to speak. The silence from her end was deafening, and it was doing more damage than any microphone ever could. While ABC's financial empire began to wobble, while executives scrambled to keep the building from metaphorically catching fire, Karoline simply watched. Calm, composed, untouched. The View wasn't just in hot water, it was drowning. And the woman they tried to humiliate on live television? She was now the storm.
On President Trump's life echoed the sentiment that President Trump is a democracy. And if you're a deranged lunatic and you're mentally ill, you will believe that lie. And yes, you will take political like we have seen in 2 instances against President Trump. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris said that everyone who showed up to President Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden was that's despicable, dangerous, divisive rhetoric that is spewed by the Democrat Party every single day. And I'm so sick and tired of the media pointing the finger at Donald Trump and saying that he is sowing division in this country. He is not. The media is for pushing hoaxes like the one that you all pushed today, and the Democrat Party is for pushing lies about him. But the good news is Americans don't buy it. And that's why today President Trump is more popular than he has been since 2016, because people don't.
And this, right here, this is where the storm truly begins to unravel the empire. Because once that $800 million verdict dropped like a legal guillotine, the spotlight didn't just hit ABC, it zoomed in hard on the 3 faces that had come to define The View: Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Sunny Hostin. Let's be blunt, these weren't just TV personalities anymore, they were liabilities. Overnight, the media darlings became public pariahs, their legacies vaporized, their credibility pulverized, their futures hanging by threads that even the best PR team couldn't untangle. And while the world watched the network descend into full-blown chaos, behind closed doors, a more brutal drama was playing out. One by one, the co-hosts were called in, not to a glam green room, but to somber legal briefings, where lawyers laid it all out with surgical coldness. Each woman was told in no uncertain terms they could be personally on the hook for a piece of the $800 million judgment. Let that sink in. Whoopi, gone was the swagger. According to insiders, she immediately retained a crisis management firm known for rebranding disgraced CEOs and politicians. Yes, it was that serious. Joy Behar, the queen of snark and sass, stopped attending production meetings altogether, emails unanswered, calls ignored. One crew member even joked, it's like she ghosted her own scandal. And Sunny Hostin, the show's legal eagle, the one who always had a hot take and a sharper comeback, broke down. Sources say during a private consultation with her legal team, she cried. Not performative tears, not for cameras, real raw panic. Because she knew this wasn't just bad press, it was professional ruin. But it didn't stop there. Karoline's legal team, as we now know, didn't just build a case, they constructed a demolition plan. They rolled out a brutal dossier of Slack messages laced with premeditated malice, video cuts showing hosts mocking Karoline during commercial breaks. Internal producer notes that literally instructed who would land the hardest punch on air. This wasn't a spontaneous exchange, it was orchestrated character assassination. And that's where The View's entire defense collapsed in on itself. Their lawyers tried spinning it as unscripted banter, but the paper trail told another story. Every smirk documented, every insult time-stamped, every wink, every cue, every rehearsed takedown labeled and logged. Then came the nail in the coffin. A leaked video filmed after the taping and never meant to see daylight emerged from deep within ABC's archives. In it, Joy Behar can be heard laughing backstage with a producer, holding a coffee cup and casually tossing off the line. Let's see her sue us for that. The arrogance, the audacity. Well, guess what, Joy? She did. And she won. The clip was played in court. Jurors reportedly froze. One juror whispered, "That's cold." And just like that, whatever sympathy The View's panel hoped to preserve was atomized. In one sentence, Joy managed to summarize everything wrong with the modern media. The smugness, the recklessness, the complete disregard for consequences. Karoline's silence in that moment said more than any press release could. This wasn't just about winning a lawsuit. This was about accountability finally catching up with arrogance. And the hosts of The View, they weren't just falling, they were free falling, with no parachute in sight. More fallout ahead. And yes, Karoline is just getting started. Let's take you now inside ABC headquarters, because what happened behind those closed doors might be even more jaw-dropping than the courtroom itself. Picture it, a sleek, glass-paneled conference room, rows of executive chairs, a 40-foot table that once echoed with confident pitches, laughter, and smug certainty, but now? Silence. Until it wasn't. One insider described the scene as, quote, a corporate funeral. Another called it the single most chaotic executive meltdown in ABC's modern history. The moment the $800 million verdict hit, alarms went off, figuratively and literally. An internal security notification triggered after multiple senior staff attempted to access sensitive financial folders simultaneously. ABC's crisis response team, prepped for scandal but not catastrophe, found themselves frozen in disbelief. Let's break it down. At 2:01 p.m., just minutes after the jury announcement, the first emergency boardroom meeting was called. The subject line, immediate response, lawsuit verdict. By 2:15 p.m., the top brass were seated. Suits, legal counsel, PR heads, showrunners. Even a few Disney stakeholders joined via encrypted Zoom. The air, unbreathable. One executive pounded the table so hard a carafe of lemon water toppled. We let this happen. We enabled this. Another, reportedly trembling, threw a legal packet across the table. This is bigger than Don Imus, bigger than Roseanne. This is legacy-level fallout. That was the moment a junior assistant from legal burst in, holding an envelope. A new letter from Karoline's team. One line, printed in clean Helvetica, read, "We suggest you begin calculating liquidation options." Liquidation, a word no one in that building had ever imagined would be used in connection with The View. This wasn't a scandal to spin or a gaffe to apologize for. This was a nuclear legal wipeout, and they were standing in the blast zone. The response? Panic. Some execs suggested immediate terminations. Fire Whoopi, fire Joy, fire Sunny, kill the brand. Others said no, that would look like guilt. If we make moves now, we admit we knew it was indefensible. So the fight began. A full-blown, red-faced, desk-slapping fight between the network's top decision-makers. Eyewitnesses reported yelling, pacing, even one executive storming out shouting, "I warned you about giving them that segment." A hidden source in the marketing department later leaked the internal poll that predicted this could backfire if handled poorly. Guess what? It was ignored. And now, that same poll has become evidence in a second wave of shareholder lawsuits. You heard right. This case didn't just cost ABC $800 million in damages. It opened the floodgates to investor fury, class action threats, and potentially the unthinkable. Network-wide bankruptcy. At this point in the meeting, ABC's CFO reportedly projected the numbers. Ad revenue losses, $140 million, legal fees, $38 million, sponsorship contracts voided, $221 million. Projected loss in brand equity, incalculable. That's not a paper cut. That's a corporate artery bleeding out on live TV.
Divisive and disgusting speech that any president, certainly in my lifetime, has ever given. He essentially waged war on half of the country by saying that we are all a threat to democracy because we believe in putting America first. It's not radical to want to put your country and your own people first. It's not radical to want to have a strong border, a strong military, and to unleash the might of your own economy, not economies around the world. You know, we have seen cultural Marxism trickling its way through every institution in this country. The public school system, the higher education university system, Hollywood, big tech, the corrupt mainstream media that I fought against in President Trump's White House are indoctrinating my generation of Americans into hating our country, hating one another based on race and gender and sex and all of this other BS, quite frankly.
And then came the second blow. A leaked clip hit Twitter just as the execs were meeting. Joy Behar post-taping, sipping wine and laughing with producers saying, "Let's see her sue us for that." Oh joy, she did. And she won. Within minutes, the clip had 2 million views. Within an hour, 10 million. Hashtags exploded. Joy be wrecked. Whoopi went down. Sunny side gone. Advertisers panicked. One major auto brand announced they were reevaluating all daytime partnerships. Another media conglomerate announced that they were suspending syndication of all past View episodes until further notice. And the kicker? Disney execs on the call were already preparing a worst-case exit strategy. If we go bankrupt, the daytime division is toast. Not hit, not wounded, not restructured. Toast. And you know what's even more damning? ABC still thought they might save it. They genuinely believed that a well-worded apology or maybe a few suspensions could undo this. But Karoline's legal team didn't even respond to those feelers. Instead, they let the silence speak. Because at this point, there was nothing to negotiate. The verdict was in, the fallout had started, and The View was about to be wiped clean off the network slate. ABC went from let's make a viral segment to let's explore liquidation in under 90 days. No spin strategy could stop it, because this wasn't a scandal, it was a reckoning. And across the media landscape, producers, anchors, and hosts were glued to the news like it was their own sentencing day. Because if Karoline Leavitt could bankrupt The View, then no one, and I mean no one in mainstream media, was safe anymore. Let's talk about the ripple effect, because it's not just ABC that's panicking. The entire media landscape is shaking. Inside CBS, emergency roundtables, NBC, legal teams auditing every unscripted segment from the past 6 months. Even streaming giants like Netflix and Hulu quietly consulting litigation experts. Why? Because Karoline Leavitt didn't just win a lawsuit, she detonated a nuclear bomb under the myth of media immunity, and the shockwaves are turning broadcast TV into a full-blown legal war zone. Other networks are scrubbing scripts like they're cleaning up crime scenes. Hosts are being retrained in mandatory defamation workshops. One insider at CNN confessed that producers now demand narrative liability clauses in every new contract, making talent directly responsible for what comes out of their mouths. TikTok is calling it the talk show takedown. Twitter is drowning in trending tags. View bankrupt. Caroline karma. Receptes Truth over talk. Media reckoning. Influencers are dissecting every second of Karoline's courtroom win, calling it the trial that ended mainstream sarcasm. YouTubers are dropping 3-hour deep dives. Commentators on both sides, left and right, are uniting for once, acknowledging one unignorable truth. This wasn't just about Karoline, this was about power. Power abused, power unchecked, and finally, power held accountable. Think about this, a 26-year-old conservative woman just dragged the most influential daytime show in America through a courtroom and bled it dry. She didn't scream, she didn't rage, she didn't tweet rage threads at 2 a.m. She showed up, receipts in hand, and dismantled decades of media arrogance with calm precision. That's not news, that's legend. Political strategists are now whispering about a bigger future. One campaign insider reportedly said, if Karoline wants to run in 2028, she's got a platform and a battle-tested following. The media tried to bury her with snide jokes. She buried them in court filings. And now, people are calling her the conservative AOC, but with lawsuits instead of hashtags. Because in a world where elite voices get away with narrative murder, Karoline made them pay. Literally and publicly. And just like that, The View didn't just lose a lawsuit, they lost the culture war. So here we are, not just at the end of a story, but the end of an era. The lights on set are dim, the makeup chairs are empty, the audience tickets suspended indefinitely. ABC, once the untouchable titan of daytime television, is hemorrhaging from every direction. Financially, reputationally, morally. The View isn't just taking a hit, it's drowning in a PR catastrophe so enormous the ripples have reached every corner of the media universe. And standing on the other side of this collapse, Karoline Leavitt, the young woman they underestimated, the political voice they mocked, the calm face behind a legal firestorm so fierce it reduced Hollywood egos to ash. Because let's be real, this didn't start with some massive conspiracy or multi-year investigation. It started with a smirk. One smug insult, one smug panel, one orchestrated media ambush, packaged in the form of a morning show appearance that was never meant to be fair, never meant to be respectful. It was meant to humiliate her. And now, the only thing that's been humiliated is The View. $800 million later, the scorecard isn't even close. Karoline won. The View obliterated. They laughed on air. She filed a lawsuit. They doubled down. She gathered receipts. They tried to erase her. She etched her name into media history. And for millions of viewers watching from home, especially those who've been silenced, dismissed, or ridiculed for not towing the mainstream media line, this wasn't just a win, it was justice. No, scratch that. It was poetic. Because it wasn't just about Karoline, it was about every person who's ever been laughed off a stage, talked over on a panel, or dismissed as irrelevant by hosts who confuse arrogance for intelligence. Karoline didn't just speak back, she burned the blueprint. She shattered the illusion that big networks can say whatever they want, paint anyone as a caricature, and then walk away untouched. Now, every producer is nervous, every host is cautious, every legal team is redrafting contracts with one thing in mind. Don't be The View, because Karoline showed the world what happens when you cross the line, and the person you mock fights back with receipts, resolve, and a righteous army of truth. So now we ask you, should The View be permanently canceled? Has daytime television finally met its accountability moment? And is this just the beginning of a media revolution where slander doesn't sell, truth does? Drop your thoughts below. We're reading every single one, especially the bold takes. And if you're fired up like we are, smash that like button if you believe justice finally had its day. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what Karoline does next, because oh, she's just getting started. Share this with someone who still thinks The View is above consequence, because guess what? That illusion just shattered. The empire didn't just crack, it collapsed. And the hammer? Karoline swung it with grace, facts, and the kind of power mainstream media never saw coming. Stay loud, stay sharp, stay tuned. Because history just got a rewrite. And her name is Karoline Leavitt.